So good morning to everybody. And we are very pleased to have a wonderful panel today. And about I40 project, yesterday we talked, as Michael mentioned, that we are a centric user approach for the teacher and the student. And yesterday we had a very good discussion about ecosystem, dealing with schools, research labs, and companies from edtechs in order to deliver some digital resources really applied for teacher, for the youth, so useful for them, we expect so, and useful for the student so that they can learn better if it's possible. So for this panel, we will discuss about what these wonderful people are working on the research part or with the company. And if you accept, we will start with a short presentation from each of you. So Alina, if you accept to start, to introduce yourself to the people here in the place, please. You should put on your mic. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alina von Davier. I work for Duolingo. It's my pleasure to be here, and I want to thank the organizer for inviting me. I lead the R&D for the Duolingo English tests in general. You may know that Duolingo is known for teaching languages as an app, so a tech company, but we also have a high stakes assessment, the Duolingo English test, that is taken by people from all over the world who want to study in an English medium. I'm also a research fellow with University of Oxford and a research fellow with Carnegie Mellon University. I'm also a VC partner with Learn Launch Accelerator for EdTech. And I've been working with AI long before it was hype. So it's good to be here and share some of my work with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alina. Aida, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Aida Nazari. I'm a co-founder of a company based in Luxembourg called LuxAI, which is specialized in socially assistive robotics for supporting children with special needs education. LuxAI was a company that was born from a research project in the University of Luxembourg, which we were focusing on understanding how AI and socially assistive robots can support children in different aspects of their life, including their education. And now we are actually supporting schools in 25 countries across the world, providing them with robots that can facilitate the education of children, especially autistic children. So one of the great things that we had a chance to do during the last 8 years that we had the company was to co-develop, co-create, and co-validate the robot with the help of amazing teachers that we have been working in different countries. And it was very important for us to make sure that the robot is kind of optimized for different cultures, different methodologies of education, and different aspects of delivering a specialized intervention. So I'm really happy to be here and then share some of the experiences from the last couple of years with you.
Thank you very much, Aida. Blaz, if you can, please.
Blaz Zupan, I do research and I also teach in the area of data science and machine learning. With Janis Dimscher, I also run a lab of about 20 people. And since we are engineers, we also construct our own ways, our own tools to teach and do data science. So this is called Orange. So Orange is not a company. Orange Data Mining is just a software. And basically where we do the stuff is University of Ljubljana. I also teach at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston. I think about, actually I need to count. I think 9 years back actually, when we were in Houston together with Janis, they asked us actually to, can we explain data science and AI to people in medicine, actually to graduate students in biology and medicine. And I think this was the first time where we say, well, you know, how to do that and what is the time that we need for that, right? So, to somebody that actually went to medicine and biology, usually because they don't like math, they do not program, and they hate statistics. And since then, we've been doing that not only for PhD students, but only going all the way down to schools. And actually the idea is that how long does it take for somebody, I mean, to take anybody, right? Not just teachers or students, but I don't know, anybody from the street, right? How long do you need to explain to these people machine learning and AI in a way not for them to actually recite what is that, but actually to know how to apply it and how to use it.
Very much. And finally, Janez, please.
Thank you. Now, imagine being pulled from the audience here, and now introduce yourself, and you have like 2 minutes to think about what you're going to say while you're listening to other introductions. And I didn't know what Blaz is going to tell, so I have to somehow add to this and say something different. So yes, as Blaz said, we started with this Orange, like a research project. It was more oriented towards scientists. We saw that it's an excellent tool for teaching about AI. And now that we want to go to schools, I had this experience like 15 years ago, maybe, when I was translating CS Unplugged, which you may know, to Slovenian. And I started preaching this gospel to teachers. Was event a bit like this, just like in Slovenia, with teachers in the audience. And I was saying things which I believed in, but then I started to actually work with teachers, and I experienced it's a completely different world, which I, as an academic, had no idea about. So I think that's one thing we'll have to do. And well, I have to introduce myself now, but that's like where I see myself and my role here is as someone who lives in both. Also, my wife is a teacher, so as someone who kind of lives in both worlds, who knows both worlds, and my role, I guess, here is to try to bridge them.
Thank you very much for all of you. We started to talk about what we will discuss now. So you mentioned it, it's not that easy coming from the research lab or from a company to the teacher or to the student. It takes time, it takes money, it has been said before. So if you accept, and we will go on the order of talking about Duolingo digital resources, then Orange digital resources, then LuxAI, if you want. Could you please present to us, to the people, 3 or key points on AI-based digital service you are working on at this time, your company, your research lab, and provide examples of their use by teacher. So we are main concerned by teacher. We understand that you are dealing with a more large public than only teacher, but the AI40 project is centered about teachers and for the benefit of the student. So please, if you accept to start, Alina, and you have a presentation. Yeah? So. Yeah. So if we can have the slide, please. Yes, that's great.
Right. Yeah, these are my slides. Thank you. Well, so this is my introduction again. You already heard before, and this is my latest book. Is on computational psychometrics. Psychometrics is the science of testing, educational tests in particular, not only language tests. And computational psychometrics is a new perspective that includes AI in the evaluation and in making sense of the data from educational tests. So how do I work with AI? As I mentioned before, I lead the assessments at Duolingo. My background is in mathematics. And actually, my PhD started in Trier, which is just a few kilometers away from here. And last time I was in Luxembourg was 30 years ago. So it's really impressive to be back. But nevertheless, so I started in mathematics and with relatively complex models, then I started introducing machine learning models into the work that I've been doing in assessment and also in adaptive learning. So I started working on systems that do both, help teach adaptively and assess adaptively. So right now in the work I do at Duolingo, I work on the testing side where we include different types of AI. We include generative AIs like GPT type of tools in creating content. So we create content for the test using these technologies. But in order to create content, we not only use language models, so text-based, but we also use tools for voice. For those of you who are familiar with the Duolingo app and you learn languages on the Duolingo app, you probably know that we have characters with different voices. So now I'm very happy that we were able to bring some of those characters on the test. And in order to create those voices and keep those conversations with the agent, we use AI as well. We use, though, a different type of AI, not language models. We also use AI for scoring. This time we created our own models. So machine learning type of models combined with the psychometric models because we want to make sure that the scores are reliable and valid. We have an adaptive administration. So when a test taker takes a test, each question on the test that is given to the test takers matches their ability level as it is estimated through the performance in the test. So the more you solve the question correctly, the more difficult the next questions are going to be. And we are also working on other parts of the assessment, such as test security. We work on plagiarism detection, for example, and we do plagiarism detection in real time. We also work on creating interactive tasks where a test taker is asked to write an essay, and then in real time, a machine will check what the test taker wrote, and then will ask to write about a different aspect of the prompt of the question. So that is in real time AI use. So in other words, we are extremely active in bringing AI into the test development, administration, and delivery. So you might be asking, why are we doing that? The main reason we are doing that is because many of us at this company, at Duolingo, including our CEO, are immigrants. We came from a different country and we learn how important it is to know English. And in order to study at the university in an English medium, you need to pass an English test. The average cost of an English test that exists nowadays from our competitors like TOEFL and IELTS, the average price for that is about $300 per test. Now imagine you are a student from, I don't know, somewhere in Africa, in Southeast Asia. Imagine that price. And you need to travel to a test center in order to take that test. And the test is 3 to 4 hours. Our test, by comparison, is about an hour because it's adaptive, so sometimes a bit longer, sometimes a bit shorter. And we are trying to keep the price down. So we are now at $59 per test, the same price everywhere in the world. So that's a huge difference. So we are trying to make it all more accessible for test takers. We also work very hard that the technology we include on the test is resilient to fluctuations in the quality of the internet bandwidth. For example, we have this interaction with the agents, and initially we had a video, and the video was too slow. About less than 1% of our test-taking population had some latency issues with the video. So we didn't launch it, and we worked with the technology on it. We started using something called Reeve, so that we use, and Visim, so that we use image, movement of lips, and sound to create a unit that is much smaller so that it can be delivered extremely fast to test takers all over the world. So that takes a lot of commitment and a strong social mission in order to create tools like that. And we couldn't do this without these technologies. If we would have only human experts as traditional tests do, we could not keep the price as low as this test is. So in addition to that, I've been also working with different researchers from universities. I'm also a PhD advisor. I've been working on measuring alternative constructs, such as collaboration, critical thinking. And in order to measure skills like that, you need a different way of collecting data. And then you need a different way of making sense of that data. So this type of technologies can be also useful, not only in measuring what we in principle know how to measure, but also measuring new types of constructs. So I will stop here, but if you have any questions, let me know. I would be happy to give more details on any of this.
Thank you very much, Alina. As probably most of you know, Duolingo was part of the digital resources shared with the teachers in this experiment. So we got a lot of very good feedbacks from the teachers using it, and it was the teacher part was free of charge in order to use. So we had some very good feedbacks from the teachers in charge of foreign languages. So thank you very much, Alina, for this first time.
I'm happy to hear that. Just to say that we have the Duolingo language app, and I believe this is what you are referring to.
Yes.
And then we have the high stakes test. So
Yes.
the difference between the two is that for a high stakes test, we need to follow the standards for all international tests that matter to someone's life. So much higher reliability, much higher validity, and so on, whatever is needed. For the language test, we target, again, accessibility, free of charge for everyone, and engagement. So we want to keep people engaged. So there are quite different motivations in the two.
Thank you very much again. So next will be with the team in charge of Orange, and we will change a few slides for that. So please. Yeah.
Actually, while this is being fixed, maybe I should just comment. Engagement is really an important thing, right? So I know, for instance, for Duolingo, I mean, I can relate to that because my wife is actually using Duolingo, and she spends at least 15 minutes each day for the past 3 years on this platform. And actually, I just wrote to her, so I have a question from her, right? She said that the platform is great, right? But you should improve the conversational part because it's a bit passive in a sense that she actually is learning Spanish. I think this engagement also is something that defines also the work of Yanis and myself on how to train machine learning. So we actually, there was a panel yesterday where there was a lot of debate about the AI and the teachers, right? Because so AI didn't just pop out of nowhere, right? In general, I mean, this generative AI, right? I mean, it's not just a revolution that just happened, right? But those of us who've been engaged in machine learning, there's a path, right? Generative AI was not invented now, right? Generative AI is like probably 20, 30 years old. So there was this path, right? The problem, of course, is that everybody else, right? For everybody else, this is what just happened, right? ChatGPT is like, oh, I can go there, I can type, I'm using AI, I actually know what it is, right? And the answer is no. And I mean, the comment is no, and this is what was the panel yesterday, which exposed that in order for us to discuss about the use of AI, the ethics of AI, the cases, how do we use AI, we should know something about AI. And in fact, because AI is now based on machine learning, teachers actually should know something about that. And this is not saying that, okay, they should be programmers, that they should go and understand Python and R, right? So this is something we've been working on. And I'd just like to give you a quick example. How do we actually approach them, right? What do we do, right? This is actually an example that was run in, I don't know, like a large number of schools in Slovenia. and we started with the data. And the data was, so Janus, I'm sorry, I'm gonna fly through it. And this was most of the work was from Janus, right? And some of the ideas were also from me. So the data was actually about the surnames. Actually, it was this was a funny stuff. Janus, actually, who's sitting here, Janus has actually collected the data on the surnames from the phone books when they were still available freely online, right? Otherwise, this would be a huge breach of GDPR. So there was this. We have the surnames and the approximate locations of the families that bear these surnames, and we said, okay, we're going to start with this data. And what you can do with this data, you can play a little bit, right? You can ask, oh, where a particular person, where a particular family that bears a particular surname is located in Slovenia. And there are funny stories because you would expect, I mean, for some of the surnames, like there's a surname sort of like a hill or somebody, right? Uphill or somebody that actually lives in the area which is called a downhill or something in Slovenia. So it's like the opposite of what you would expect, right? You also see the surnames are not distributed equally across our very little country. Slovenia has only 2 million people. What you can actually do, Slovenia has many municipalities, and you can profile municipalities by the frequencies of the surnames. So you do this data transformation, right? And then you can reason about municipalities and no longer the surnames, and you can do clustering. And so the clustering itself is very interesting because you actually go and you find out that some, like the municipalities that you live in are actually similar in a surname content than the neighborhood municipalities. And when you do the clustering and when you cut the clusters to, like, say, 3 or 4, right, the country actually breaks down to these 3 distinctive areas for which Janus, when he talked with historians and
these are basically boundaries within Austro-Hungarian Empire in 18th century. So 200 years passed since then, but surnames in different municipalities are still different. So it's an interesting lesson for how history is important.
So we did that. We actually, I mean, to push this into schools, right? Because we can give lessons like that and we can engage people in the classrooms live, right? But the idea here was actually, can we do this with, I don't know, thousands of kids, right? And thousands of, in different places, right? So we said, okay, let's put several movies together. There were 3 or 4 videos that we put together. Videos have to be short, like 5 minutes, because otherwise it's getting really boring, right? So these are the videos. We also created the textbook for the teachers that explains the concept. So whoever was the teacher there, if they want to dive in, right? If they want to spend some time and understand something more about the math, right? Here it is, right? We also spent time in the organizing quizzes. So the idea was the kids would go, they would watch videos and then answer the questions, which were not like describe this, right? But find something new, right? I don't know, which municipality is like most similar to yours one, or where do people that are with the surname Demshar, where do they actually live, right? Or how does a particular region of Slovenia cluster with other regions and so on, right? We also trained the teachers. So there were several courses with the teachers where we showed them the idea and how to actually assess this. And then there were actually kids, right? And there were this was sort of like a challenge, right? 1,000 kids participated. So for us, this was a complete surprise because initially we said, we're gonna be happy with, I don't know, maybe 50 or 100, right? 1,000 kids participated. And this was carried out in the, so the challenge was usually, so these were mostly primary, but some also secondary school. This was carried out within an hour. Can you imagine within an hour? And we didn't, so when we presented this, right, there was no talk about, I don't know, Euclidean distance, cosine distance. It was all about actually, I don't know, surnames, geography, perhaps history. And this was indeed carried out in these classes and not in computer science classes. But behind that, right, are the concepts of database profiling, distance estimation, nearest neighbors, hierarchical clustering, geoinformatics, right? And we think, right? So we just think that probably this is the way to bring machine learning and AI into schools. So no, do not push statistics and math, do not push definitions, right? But instead use it in the lectures where the kids are engaged in the studying of the material that it's anywhere planned, right? It's planned about, so they actually learn about geography, they learn about the language, they learn about history, right? But through the use of machine learning, right? And the lesson is not, the challenge was not called machine learning, right? But the lessons was called the lesson about the surnames in Slovenia, right? And we believe this could probably be the way to train teachers and students. And there's a project actually that we are now starting with the Luxembourg and Ireland, and most of the actors are here. Actually, I see Daniela, but not Claude, who wrote the proposal. There's a continuation of this Erasmus project, which is called DALI for Us, where we're going to test these ideas and bring data literacy and data science into classrooms in these 3 countries. So sorry to be a bit longer.
No, it was great. Thank you very much. And we had the pleasure to discover your digital resources in the wonderful Ljubljana for the AI40 teams. I must acknowledge I was really, really impressed. And as you mentioned, it's for the ministry point of view, I'm from the French Ministry of Education. We know how difficult it is to come from the laboratory to the classroom and reverse, to go from the classroom to the laboratory. What you made is applied research, and you make it accessible to young people. So it's wonderful to manage these kind of things. And I guess Aline is really happy because you can deal with AI and data, working and learning history and geography. And obviously, it's not only a question of mathematics. So it's obviously there are a lot of mathematics, but you can address foreign languages, as it has been said before you, and you can address history and geography and make sense. So thank you very much for this presentation. And last but not least, about differentiation, about a better inclusive classroom for the special needs student. If you may, please, follow on.
So before starting discussing about the different aspects of the activities that we do, I would like to give you a very brief introduction to the special needs education children that we work with, so you can better understand different aspects of how technology can assist in different areas. So one of the main areas of special needs education that we are specialized in and focused on is children with autism spectrum disorder. And autism is characterized by having a difficulty in social interaction. So namely having a one-on-one social interaction, learning through, for example, social interaction with teachers, peers, and parents is the main area that is affected in this condition. And naturally, because of that, we have a lot of developmental disorders in children that can have different, let's say, appearances, in a sense that some child might be a little bit kind of challenged on the social aspects, but having a very good language and very good, even superior cognitive skills. And some child might be affected across the different areas, such as language, cognition, having complete learning disability. Another challenge is that in order to support these children, there is a huge need for very early and very intensive type of interactions, meaning that one-on-one interactions, sometimes 30 to 40 hours per week for each child. So in reality, it's impossible to be able to support all the children with the education that they need. So we have to think about how we can scale interventions, especially that interventions are quite structured and specialized. So a lot of times to have a teacher or a therapist to be able to support children, you really need somebody who is very well trained, very hard to access in reality in society. The other important aspect is that many of these children that we are working with, they need a very detailed assessment in order to identify what is the unique need of this child right now, so we can optimize the education for them. So it's not possible to assign them by their age group or the grades and then give them a defined education plan. It's a completely individualized type of approach, which makes it quite challenging because a lot of assessments that are giving us the data that we need come from one-on-one interaction. And if the child has a difficulty to engage, the data that we get is not very reliable, in a sense that the child is not performing well in the assessment because they don't have the skill, or because they are not just simply engaged to the assessment and interaction to be able to give us accurate perspective. So when it comes to LuxAI, the initial idea was that we have seen that children with autism interact with technology extremely well. They are driven to it, they engage well, they respond well, and they really learn well. So technology such as social robots can be a very good medium to actually engage them and get a very productive, well-structured education session with them. The second thing is that the technology has the possibility of scaling the services, meaning that if, for example, a social robot comes with, for example, educational activities that are optimized for these children, it means that teacher can make a supervision on the education of the children and be able to scale their ability to cover more children rather than having face-to-face interactions. They would be able to delegate the interaction to people that they supervise, such as their teacher assistants, and yet make sure that the quality of the intervention is as defined as by the evidence-based practices and literature. The other area that our robots can be very effective is that once the robot is interacting with the children, it's collecting a lot of data in terms of what the child does well, what kind of areas that they are challenged with, what are the areas that they are really fluent with, so there is no need to actually engage them and practice further. And this data can be really game-changing in a sense that not only it can really help us to develop a very individualized and personalized type of education for the child, but it can be very eye-opening for social services and for teachers, in a sense that imagine that, let's say in a country like UK or in the US, there is a huge budget per child to be able to get them the education that they need. But a lot of times there is a huge waste of resources because the data that is necessary for understanding the need of the child is not there. So we are just guessing that maybe this type of intervention is good, maybe certain hour of a speech therapy is necessary. But while having the robot interacting with the children, the data that is collected from the robot and the long-term interaction can really give us a very, very good overview into the mind of the child to know that all the time the child is able to perform very well in some certain type of skills, and they are not able to perform so well in the other ones. So it's very clear for us that if you want to invest time and resources and specialize the staff with the very short accessibility, where are the areas that we have to focus? And then the last thing is that this data that is collected from the robot, beside providing very good information about the child and helping to actually optimize the education for them on the go, can also be very helpful in terms of like providing a general perspective of the interventions for children with autism. Meaning that a lot of times when we have assessments that we do, that they are very hard to access, very difficult to interpret for people who are not necessarily expert in the field. So let's say you have these psychoeducational assessments that are done, but they are not necessarily optimized for the use of the teachers for the educational planning because they are more oriented toward the kind of a therapy and health of the children. So by collecting this data and then being able to make a meaningful correlation between the standardized therapeutic assessment as well as the performance of the education of the children, we would be able to produce some set of data that is very accessible, but also be able to kind of generalize it between different disciplines. So regardless of if somebody is looking at the child from a therapy perspective or from an educational perspective, they still have some kind of a data that can be kind of translated to different type of standardized assessment. So what we are doing is that we have a social robot that initially comes with a lot of educational activities that they have been developed by people experienced in the field. They have been tested, peer reviewed, and optimized based on different methodologies to be able to get accepted by the teachers. The second thing is that when the robot is being used in different countries across the different schools, we have been focusing a lot on developing this data collection, data representation to make sure that the data is, in one hand, reliable, and the second thing is that presented in a way that it doesn't add additional work for the teachers to learn how to kind of understand the meaning, optimize it based on what they used to see, and give them graphs, give them information that is aligned with what they need to see and what they need to report as their general work. And now we are also running a large scale clinical study that allows us to actually be able to develop this translation between the data that the robot is producing to the standardized assessment that can be used to report on the child in a level that is appropriate for the governmental bodies, for the health authorities, and for the people who actually are the payers of the different public services for the children. So that's everything that we do in a nutshell.
Thank you very much, Aida. And as we said in France, when something is well developed for a special needs student, most of the time is useful for everyone in the classroom. It helps everyone to progress. So thank you very much. It was very, very interesting. I suggest that we mix the 2 seconds, the followers question, so that we can have some questions from the attendees. So please, now, this is what you are working all together on your subjects. AI40 is shaping the future of education, and the future is starting now. So what are the 2 or 3 areas that can be, in your point of view, explored for education and training over the next 3 years? And if you had some suggestion to help the teacher, the ministry, and the student, what could they be, please? So Alina, if you want to start.
So I would recommend teachers to include critical thinking elements during their teaching and courses in any domain. So one of the big problems nowadays for all of us is how to differentiate between fake anything, images, fake text, fake news, and reality. So critical thinking, proper questioning of a situation would be necessary. Other skills are communication. Communication nowadays means communication with other humans, but also communication with machines. And that leads a bit to how to properly use AI, but emphasis is still on communication and co-creation. So that is one area that is more about teaching. I've been also thinking, and of course reading about this, that other elements that one could use AI in teaching and in a teaching environment would be to use it as a Socratic conversationalist. So have the student or groups of students interact with AI, with the teacher eventually, and have a conversation. And again, using critical thinking skills, take that apart, put it together, the proper interaction with that. This could be a homework, could have multiple types of applications. Again, it could be, AI could be used as a tutor or as a guide. So in a similar way, if I understood correctly, as the social robot is, but could be for anyone. Trying to have it as a guide, like, did you prepare for tomorrow? Like a checklist in the evening, in the morning. Are you ready? Did you didn't do so well on this course? Have you checked these materials, those resources? So there are applications of these systems that could be incorporated in the teaching practices that could do 2 things. One is actually 3 things. It can make the teacher's job easier, especially in very heterogeneous classes. It can teach familiarity with these technologies, which is really important because this next generation has to know how to deal with these tools. And 3, could actually present elements of teaching or even for the same topic in different ways. And maybe with that, one can reach more students than otherwise would do. I had a longer list. Now I don't remember everything I had on my slides, but you got the gist of it.
Thank you very much. Aida, if you want to follow on, please.
So I think there are, I completely, I think Alina said a lot of things that I also wanted to share, but there are two areas that I think are really important that we actually try to dig deep into and then find a solution, in a sense that we know that the AI for education and for teaching is really developing quite fast, in a sense that a lot of companies, they are developing solutions to educate children across the board of like different areas. So children are nowadays are able to get many things that they need to learn on their own from internet, from different apps and from different resources. So a lot of times what I feel is that there is kind of a gap happening between the education that is kind of delivered through the school, through the teachers, through the more traditional setup, and what is available for children. And I always think that it is creating a lot of like inequality, in a sense that not all the children are kind of having the resources to be able to be educated on their own using different resources, and they are relying heavily on the school system and on their teachers to actually teach them anything that they need to learn. So I was thinking that it would be really great if there would be a lot of like frameworks to be able to better engage teachers to make sure that we are closing this gap, in a sense that the concept of involving teachers in the creation of the technologies, having them on board from the day ones, would be able to facilitate a lot of integration of the technologies directly to the schools, being utilized by the teachers on day-to-day practices. So a lot of children would be able to benefit from it directly, regardless of how much access they have to different resources. And of course, it's not possible if the, let's say, industries that is pushing the technology for education is separated from the public sector, from the educational sector, and from the teacher perspective. And then the other thing that I think is very critical is the fact that when it comes to education, in a sense that the topics of the education, I completely agree that it's more about critical thinking, problem solving nowadays, because when we were young and when we were going to, let's say, a school, for us, it was clear that you'd gain some certain knowledge and then you apply it in a framework of the job, you would get something done in the future. But nowadays, it's not very clear that what is going to happen in the future for our children that are currently going to school. So I think one of the things that is very important is the mind shift, in a sense that a lot of the focus of this school and the teaching should go on skills that nobody can replace it with the AI in future, in a sense that communication, problem solving, critical thinking, and more importantly, flexibility. In a sense that one of the things that I found critical is that in the age of the AI, in the couple of years from now, one of the skills that would be really saving for a person is to be able to be flexible and to be a lifelong learner, in a sense that I am a medical doctor by background, and maybe in a couple of years, there wouldn't be much place for me to perform as a professional in the field. But then if I'm a flexible person, if I'm a good communicator, I would be able to navigate and find areas that I can be still a part of the community, still a productive part of the society, just relying on this lifelong learner skill, flexibility, and problem solving.
Thank you very much. Blaz and Janice, please, if you want to have words too.
Okay, I have just two, and even those will be related, kind of. So the first one would be, I would emphasize not just critical thinking, but data literacy. So what COVID taught us, I guess, was that you had, all the data was there, and people were saying, oh, this data shows this and that. No, it doesn't, definitely doesn't. You're reading it all wrong. You don't understand these distributions, these conditional probabilities at all. So we as a community suffer if people cannot interpret the data correctly. And in a more broad sense, data literacy could also be the ability to find data, not just reliable data, but to find data, to discover data sources, to discover what you can do with the data. So that's one thing that we're really working on within this project. These surnames are just one idea. We have many different cases like this, where you take some data from some unexpected source and then you learn something from it. So in those times, today, nowadays, I think the society, we have so much data, and we should be able to do something with it to progress. And the other related topic is AI literacy. I don't have a driver's license. This was the only exam I failed in my life 3 times in a row, and I said, perhaps that's a sign I shouldn't drive. But I remember the first time, the first hour of driving lessons, this instructor, he opened the hood of the car and said, if you want to drive it, you have to know what's in there. And it's not that you have to be a mechanic to be able to drive, but you need to know how it works. No, I'm a cyclist now. Obviously, because I have to go to work, but I cycle a lot. And of course, not every cyclist needs to know how the cycle works, how the bicycle works, but you need to know at least a bit. I can fix it. I can take it apart and put it back together. You don't need to be able to do this. But if you want to drive a bicycle, you need to know the basics of how this transmission works so that you can use gears appropriately. And it's the same with AI. You cannot operate AI efficiently if you have no idea what's under the hood. Yeah, so that's my 2 points.
Thanks. Blaz, please.
Let me illustrate this through an example. So you hear a lot, I mean, also in the newspapers, that ChatGPT hallucinates, right? I mean, I even heard that, I don't know, my rector wrote in a major newspaper, there was even a title, right? He doesn't trust AI because it hallucinates, right? This is so wrong. I mean, even this hallucinates is wrong, right? Because ChatGPT, right, if you understand how it was trained, it was actually trained to make sentences that observe the grammar of the language. ChatGPT is just that, right? And they also train it to answer questions in a structured way, right? They didn't train it not to hallucinate, right? And actually hallucination, right, is a positive thing from a ChatGPT, right? Because where the data is missing, right, ChatGPT can actually make up sentences, right, that make sense, right? And if we would understand, right, if journalists or politicians would actually understand how these models are built together, because they're built together on data, right? So they just, I don't know, they model the data. Basically, ChatGPT, the large language models are just compression of large volumes of text, right? If we would understand that, right, then we would know that hallucination, right, is actually not something, it's not the deficiency of a particular model, right? But we should actually say, well, the next time you train a model, right, exclude hallucination, right? And that will be included in the optimization function, right? So, okay, the 3 points, right? But before I continue, since I'm going to see my wife in 12 hours, you should really include conversational stuff in Duolingo. Okay, so I don't know, just 2 points, right? I think we should make, I mean, for the next 3 years, I think it's a challenge to make educational programs or tools, or like, I don't know, find the right data sets and problems for the teachers, right? Because the teachers are really important, right? We lost the battle to train politicians or whoever, right? I mean, based on the panel yesterday, right? So the teachers are the most important ones, right? Because they can change something, right? We should really compose the training material for them and with them. I mean, they should be engaged in that. The second thing that I would add is that currently we don't know whether even the approaches that we with Janis and with Daniela, we're going to do, right? We don't know whether this is effective, right? So there should be a large component of evaluation. We should actually learn whether this is successful or not. Currently, we are like, at least my driver is just the intuition, right? And because I enjoy it, this is what I do, right? But then there should be evaluation. Thanks.
Thank you very much. As you all know, I40 delivered some digital resources, to be honest, that are only basics about AI in education. So as we said before, yesterday, they are starting points. I guess everyone has really appreciated the discussion. And for the ministry, I'm quite sure, because we are thinking about what next after I40 project, we should invite them in order to think with us, in order to define what would be the next step. So if there are some questions, there are some questions. So 2 and 3, and after we are very lucky because we can discuss with these wonderful people during the pause if needed. So Valentin, first question.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your presentation. Very
A
inspiring.
short question, please, because
Yes,
there are
but three questions for each of us. Oh, 3 questions of each of us. For Duolingo, do you think that you can propose a fiche that presents the way you combine the AIs just to make it more understandable when teachers or policymakers are selecting the products that they want to have into the classroom? My short question for you. The short question for the colleagues of Orange. I think that you have here something to say about teach AI. When we thought about teaching AI, it's not only to teach through maths or technology courses, but it's something that we need probably to discuss to be more practical, and it's related to the practicalities that the teachers were asking into this project, but always in other projects. And for LuxAI, what is your point dealing with health and education data? Because this is the way we are probably the most cautious, and we take care a lot as policymakers that we don't want to have some issues after that happening, and especially with the robot collecting these data, and with the AI Act, we know that the facing recognition, etc., etc. So maybe here, have you had this, or is it an issue to go deeper in your products and proposal?
We will take the second question, please, at the same time, and you will decide.
And a third question. And
yeah, and then again,
very
we will
quick,
have a time for a pause so you can exchange to have more discussion around the coffee time.
Thank you all for the presentation. My question is for Blaz. I will have a question for each one of you, but we are short on time. 2 years ago, I asked a similar question to Blaz. I'm gonna ask again. Now we are in the middle of the storm, and how do you see the role of us computer scientists to deal with all of this in education? Now we have a lot of pressure on us. How we respond to this, and what is our role in this mess?
Thank you very much for this question. The storm, the tsunami, or whatever we can call it, but it's not a little wave. The third question, please.
Okay. Yes, I have a question for LuxAI, because I'm quite skeptical when you say that we should let autistic children interact with robots, especially with humanoid robots, because they have already difficulties in social interactions. And my question is, will they not be even more inclined to think that the robot has a soul and is actually similar to human being? And is there not a risk that if these children who are already in a different world, living in a different world, and they engage with robots and digital technology in general, is there not a risk that they completely escape from this world and not part of our society anymore?
Thank you very much. So let's try the difficult exercise to just have short answers, starting answers. Please.
So we do not create materials for teachers at Duolingo. We have research papers that describe how AI is done. Very shortly, in the language app, the main use of AI is that it's relevant for teachers is the fact that it's adaptive. It's also an adaptive system, but it also includes what we call a loss function of forgetting function. So regularly, the old content is brought up again so that the student has a chance to recap some of the old concepts. There is a full pathway through the curriculum on Duolingo, and different levels can go into different places in the pathway. But beside what you find online, we do not have any other materials for teachers. I have to answer twice the question about conversations. So the reason there is no conversation at the moment on Duolingo, and also we don't have it as a conversation on the test, is because the technology that is used to understand what different accents in a particular language would say is doesn't have yet the right reliability so that it won't frustrate the learners. So, but it's coming. So we are waiting to see how the technology improves.
Thank you very much. So the next question is Aida, you want to, or Blaz? Wait.
Okay, so we had two questions. One about the data security related to the interactions of the robot with the children, and the second one about the ethics of use of the robot for children with autism in particular. So when it comes to the matter of the data privacy, so of course, there are a lot of like guidelines related to different layers of data that is collected by the technology. So first layer is that you want to collect as little data as can be functional for the system. So meaning that the appearance of the child, their face, their voice, anything that is kind of considered as a private type of a data is not at all collected by the robot. So the robot is not collecting any type of sensitive information from the children. The only data that is collected is the performance metrics that I asked this question. It took the person to a few seconds to give this particular answer, right? So it's very performance measurement. The data is also kept with the highest level of the security. So even though that the robot is not a medical device and it's not in the category of medical device, we are complying with the medical device regulation when it comes to the data security, such as, for example, like a GDPR for the European and also HIPAA and COPPA for the US, to make sure that the data that we are collecting, even though that they are not sensitive information, they are kept in the highest level of the quality to make sure that the product is a trustworthy product for the people who actually use it. The second question about the ethics of use of the robot. So robot for autism is not a new domain. So we have more than 25 years of literature published on the topic, and we have a lot of clinical studies done on that one. And what you ask is naturally the first ethical question, that these children already have social difficulties. Are we helping them to be more social, or we are actually giving them an alternative environment that can give them a sense of security that, okay, I have this robot to interact with. Why do I need to interact with other people? So there is a lot of scientific evidence that shows that the robots work very good in actually improving the social skill performance of the children in real life, meaning that the easiest example that I can give you is that imagine that if you want to become a pilot, right? So you are dealing with a lot of different elements when you are flying. And naturally, your first trial is not to fly an airplane. Your first trial is to try and practice in a controlled environment. So the robot is exactly the same, meaning that it has a very controlled degree of social interactions, complexity of the behaviors, and then allow the child to practice their skills and build confidence and kind of build the knowledgeability to be able to learn the skills and then implement them in real life. And also there are a lot of studies that shows that when the robot is utilized in an educational session, the immediate effect is creating a triangular interaction and joint attention between the child and the person, the adult who is running the activity with them. So interestingly, the first effect is that it improves the interaction between two humans rather than attracting the attention of the child kind of like in isolation to itself.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Blaz.
Yeah, so there was this question about the role of computer scientists. And I think it was answered implicitly already. So you can improve the speech recognition for Duolingo to improve this conversational part. That would be great, right? Okay, so just, I think computer scientists should just enjoy in computer science and do the stuff. I mean, at computer science, we develop technology, and okay, this led us to somewhere, right? But it was always the case, I think, in history, where technology improved our lives. It was also misused, like you can misuse hammer, you can, I don't know, use it for nails, right? Or you can put it on somebody's head, right? But we are also trained in ethics, and we know that this later should not be the right thing to use a hammer, right? And it's similar for AI, right? And similar for any kind of technology. Then okay, so I don't know if that, I couldn't see who, so. You're probably going to ask me again in 2 years, and the answer is going to be the same. We just have to do what we're good at, I think.
Blaz, can I add to that?
Sure.
So as a computer scientist, what I have to do this last year reminded me of people in times of COVID, when you had people joined anti-vaxxer forums to persuade people that viruses, yes, they do exist. We have seen them, they are real. And now, as a computer scientist, so I thought, oh, they're crazy. Why are they joining these forums? Just let them be, okay? But now the same thing is happening to me because they invite me to different media to discuss AI. And there I have to discuss with people who have nothing but fears of AI. Why? Because they don't know anything about AI. So the role of computer scientist, unfortunately, is that I'd prefer to be coding somewhere back there instead of sitting here. Yeah, I'm a computer scientist, I'm introverted, I'm on somewhere on your spectrum of autism. I'd prefer to work with robots than with people, okay. But now my role in this last year was to go outside and to talk about AI. And I think it is unfortunately also our role, not just to code and to enjoy, but to tell people what this actually is, what it does. Otherwise, we're going to live in a society where AI is going to be feared, like vaccines are going to be feared, and I think it's not good.
Thank you very much to four of you.
There was actually also another question about the math in the classroom, right? So do we need, so when we are explaining the AI or actually machine learning, right? Or data science or data literacy, do we need to include the math, right, or statistics? And I think Janus will also add to that, or probably the others as well. But I think, right, the answer will be no at the start, right? So if I go to the classroom, right, to whichever classroom, and I say, oh, now I'm going to talk about the t-test and the variance, right? I lost the classroom. Yeah, exactly. At that very moment, right? They're not going to listen to me for the rest of the hour, right? But if we go into the problem, right, and say, I don't know, explainable AI, it's actually based a lot on statistics, right? But if you say, if you have a problem, right, oh, I have, I don't know, 2 clusters of municipalities in Slovenia, right? Where are they different? How, right? You can actually take 5 minutes, right, to explain the t-test without saying that this is a t-test, right? And at the end, right, maybe you mentioned that actually this is something that is known as a t-statistics, right? But I won't talk about it. And then I can hear people saying, wow, you know, this is the first time I understand some statistics, right? If this would be explained to me in statistical class like that, right, I would maybe enjoy statistics as well, right? So I think there's always this math, right? And then there's always statistics, and these are, and there are always algorithms, right? But when we explain things to general audience or teachers, right, we need to start somewhere else, right? But we can lead there as well. And if they want to, right, we can include that as well, right? So I don't know, Janus actually went to a lot of primary schools and I don't know, kindergartens as well, or not yet? Okay, no.
So thank you very much again for this wonderful discussion.